Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Annmarie Kelly, and I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman power partner. This is a place for us victory chicks and you men who care about us. Meet on Fridays to chat about the week and to find ways to get inspired and empowered and make our lives better. And thanks for joining me on the happy hour today. I'm glad you're here. I hope you're drinking something good for happy hour today. If you're a regular listener, you know that most of the time at happy hour we talk with women who have reinvented their lives or are in the process of writing like their next fabulously victorious chapter. And today is no exception. But my guest today, Ann Hoffman-Ruffner, has some great insight on why, if we want to reinvent, we don't do it. And not only that, but the reason why we aren't being fully empowered as women. And you know, when we connect with our power, that's always really a good thing for us. But somehow we don't embrace that full empowerment. So she has some interesting things to say, and she's sharing them with you and me today. I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. I went to dinner with my cousins who were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And they have 3 wonderful daughters, all married to neat guys, and they have 6 grandchildren. We all went to Pika's in Upper Darby for dinner. And if you don't know Pika's, you will soon. Pika's, for those of you from Delaware County, you all know Pika's. Well, they're opening up another restaurant down the road here in Westchester. So I had the eggplant parmesan, which was excellent. And Joseph said the same thing about his lasagna. But we had such a good time being with my cousins. And I'll tell you, if you end up being married that long and have a family with that much love between them, you can really say you've accomplished something good. Something that has a positive effect, not just on you, but on the world, because, you know, you raise your kids and then they interact with other people, so they're impacting the world one way or the other. So congratulations to Marianne and Richard, and congratulations for having such a beautiful family. That was Saturday. And on Sunday, Joseph and I drove up to the Poconos. And I'll tell you this, after a month of 18-hour work days, I was glad to get away, even if it was just for an overnight. And happily, I have a friend who lent me her house in Tannersville for the night. In fact, she stayed there on Friday and Saturday night with one of her friends. And then Joseph and I drove up and met her and her friend for breakfast on Sunday. She came back this way to go to a barbecue in Lancaster while we went back to her house and stayed there. And it was pretty hot when we got there, so we just stayed in and relaxed for a little bit. And then in the mid-afternoon, we drove east to Stroudsburg, to the Delaware Water Gap. Have you ever been there? I was there a long time ago, like when I used to get houses in the mountains when I was single, and like a bunch of girls used to get a house. But I know that I went, but I don't remember it at all. And I certainly don't remember it being as good as I found it on Saturday. First of all, I didn't know that it's a national park. You know, I think of like Acadia and you know, the Grand Canyons. Like, I think those are national park. Who would think Delaware Water Gap was a national park? But it's been one since the 1960s, so my whole lifetime it's been that way. I just didn't know. And secondly, it's free. And as we drove through the lush greenery around the mountains, I found it very peaceful. And also, unlike the heat every place else, it was cool. So while I was there, I learned that the Delaware Water Gap has a lot of hiking trails, including a piece of the Appalachian Trail. And maybe you knew that, I think I probably could have figured it out if I had spent time thinking about it, but I never did until Saturday. And it has lots of waterfalls, and I'm a sucker for a good waterfall. By the time we got there, we saw the roads were pretty crowded. From a lot of people had been there. And then there was a Celtic festival and something else going on. So fortunately, we were driving against the traffic most of the time because we didn't even start out from Tannersville till mid-afternoon. So it wasn't too bad. It was a little late to do a lot of hiking, but we went to a place called Dingman's Ferry Falls. And it's only about a half mile up and about a mile up and back, but it includes two big waterfalls that are just beautiful. In fact, I posted some of the pictures that I took there on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. So we finished around dusk, and we drove back to Tannersville, and I bought some ground beef at the local white store and made some hamburgers. And I know a lot of areas had bad rain on Sunday night, but it wasn't like that in Tannersville. And Joseph and I got to sit outside, and we ate and drank wine, and we soaked up all the peacefulness of the outdoors. I think I could have stayed there all night. And if it was a screened-in porch and I wasn't worried about critters running around, I probably would have. But I came in, I guess we sat out there and talked till about midnight, and then I went into the house and went right to sleep. The next afternoon when we were driving home, we were on Route 100, and we stopped at Longacres for ice cream. Did you ever go there? You know, that place is family-owned, and they're just so nice. I think they make the ice cream the old-fashioned way. So, and it's a good way to end the weekend. For us, it was a good way to end the weekend. I was back to work on Tuesday and spent the week playing catch-up. You know, over the past few weeks, with everything so crazy busy with Girlfriend Gala, I haven't had the time to give the political landscape more than a glance. And, you know, based on what I saw, I wasn't missing much of substance. This week I paid a little more attention. All I could do was shake my head. How about you? How are you dealing with all of this? I'm wondering how we ended up with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as nominees. But yesterday, Hillary Clinton, who said all along she was going to let Trump do his thing and she was going to focus on the issues, did exactly the opposite. And apparently she teased her press conference to the press as a foreign policy conference, but it seems there was no foreign policy except to tell people that Donald Trump is a crazy man, and if he's elected, and this must have been the foreign policy part, he'll befriend Putin and destroy the world. Now, if you're a person who believes that Hillary isn't trustworthy, your opinion was strengthened by Hillary's bait-and-switch game with this press conference she did. And this year, Twitter has been the politicians' press of choice. And I'm wondering, do you tweet? I haven't gotten on the Twitter bandwagon myself yet. I have a Twitter account. I have two of them. I use LinkedIn mostly because that's good for business. And I don't use it enough, but I'm getting better. And I use Facebook because it seems that's where most of us midlife women hang out. I noticed that, at least in my Facebook crowd, a lot of us are busy on Facebook at night. And maybe that's something we do while watching TV and settling into relaxation, and it's certainly better than eating junk food while we're watching TV. But I must admit, I find out more about my women and men friends by scrolling around Facebook. And at my private group, the Victory Chicks community, we have a good time. And you can join the Victory Chicks community, but you have to ask to get in. So if you want to, I posted the link. You go to Victory Chicks community, and then it asks you if you want to join, and then we just have to approve you. I posted a link to that on today's radio wrap-up. But this summer, once I catch up on what I missed because of Girlfriend Gal, I plan to do more on LinkedIn and Twitter. And you know how it is. You either get on the bandwagon or you get left behind. And Victory Chicks and you guys, we're too young and we have too much to say to get left behind. Don't you agree? So listen, follow me on Twitter at Annmarie Kelly. But here's something I didn't know, and I don't like, and you probably won't like either. Last week, the Business Insider published research about women in Twitter. The study, which searched Twitter for the words slut and whore, discovered that women are responsible for half the sexist attacks on women on Twitter. I found that really disturbing. Of course, if you watch any of those Real Housewives shows, you might not be so surprised. They make their money based on women harassment. And I can't watch those shows. They can't even be one of those guilty pleasure shows for me. Women criticizing women and personality and ignoring substance, that's so anti-victorious woman that it just isn't part of me. And why, when we hate that men do it to us, do we do it to each other? And I just don't get that. That's like smacking yourself upside the head. And you victory chicks know. We face enough challenges as women, and we don't need women using Twitter to magnify the problem or validate words like slut, whore, or any other degrading terms. It's like in the black community, the N-word is somehow used as a term of endearment or in rap as empowerment or something. But if you aren't black and use that word, it's considered racist. I don't get that either. Because if a word is demeaning, it's demeaning. And it shouldn't matter who says it. The TV show Blackish, I don't know if you watch that one, but I do not all the time. But they did a whole explanation-style show about that, and I still don't get it. If you want to go after someone you don't like, but stick to the facts, do it, but stick to the facts. Using slut and whore as shorthand to attack another woman isn't the way to do it, and frankly, we're smarter and better than that. How can we stop sexual harassment if we're engaging it in ourselves? We aren't going to be our best selves if we are demeaning other women. Because, and think about this, we always can see a piece of ourselves in others. So when we demean another woman, we're demeaning part of ourselves. And even worse, we're giving men the permission to do the same. And if you know sexual harassment, it's ever happened to you, or you've been demeaned at a job, or even put down in a conversation among friends, it feels bad. And it sucks up your personal sense of dignity and empowerment. And listen, speaking of empowerment, let's talk to Ann Hoffman-Ruffner about some of this. But that's not the main reason why I invited Ann to our happy hour. I invited her because Ann wants you and me to live our one wild and precious life with passion and joy. You and I want that, don't we? And we especially want it now, since we're finished doing all the good girl stuff and can have the rest of our lives to be joy-filled. Well, Ann has 3 decades of experience as a therapist, and in her reinvention, she studied with Brene Brown and Martha Beck, so she can empower and energize women to realize their dreams and to live joyfully and to positively transform the world. Don't you love it? So listen, go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and we'll come back with Ann Hoffman-Ruffner, and you're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Ann Hoffman-Ruffner. Hi, Ann. How are you today?
Hi, Annmarie. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for coming today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
So were you hearing that stuff about when I was talking about like that research that they did and that whole idea of women, like women against women stuff,
Yes. That's very disturbing to me, too. It's really sad.
And don't you agree that there's a piece of us in everybody, so when we're doing that to somebody else, it's like we're doing it to ourselves?
We are. We really are, because, that's one of the things that I was just thinking about listening to you, that when we're criticizing somebody else, we're really, it's holding the mirror up to ourselves as well, because things we see in other people that we don't like, there's a piece of that in us. And so we're actually judging and criticizing ourselves rather than holding ourselves with honor and compassion.
And geez, Ann, we don't need that from anybody else, including ourselves, huh?
No kidding. No kidding. We need to be lifting each other up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you were a therapist for 30 years, and then you had a midlife career change. Why did you reinvent?
Well, at that time, my parents were, they both were dying and died actually within a period of 4 months of each other. And so during that time I was with them, I just really realized that I wanted to be fully present in my life. And that opportunity to be with them at the end of their lives helped me evaluate where I was in mine and realize that I wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't the pace, and everything that I was doing was not in alignment with my personal self and my values. And I really just wanted to work with healthy women who are dealing with transitions in life and feeling dissatisfied or disconnected in their lives and wanting to have something better for themselves.
Ann, I think that happens to a lot of people, especially when we're doing that caregiving thing. And I know for me, I did that with my mom. But who always made me who did that, and it kind of made me laugh, was Diana Nyad. She got back to pursuing that goal of crossing the,
yes,
just as a result of her being the caregiver for her mother.
Yeah.
She'd done it earlier and never achieved it, and then she got, she was doing that caregiver, and then when she was watching her mother die, she said, I'm doing this now.
Well, we put our lives on hold.
Yeah.
We really do. We care, and we are such great caregivers, and we take it so seriously, and we put everybody else in front of us. And we put our jobs, we put our spouses, we put our children, we put our parents, we put our siblings and our neighbors and our, communities ahead of us. And pretty soon our own oxygen runs out. And we really need to make sure that we're not passing up our own lives in the process.
Yeah, and I think, and sometimes it's hard. Well, I think when we're in a reinvention, we go through what I call the valley experience. And every woman I say that to knows exactly what I mean. But you explained it with equal eloquence. You said you felt like, this is your quote, burying my face into a pile of fettuccine Alfredo.
Oh, yeah. And that was actually a very real moment. That wasn't just, a thought. My face was probably about 4 inches away from the fettuccine. But yeah, at that time, there were so many things going on. I had, my parents were aging and not happy with aging. My daughter was struggling. She'd been misdiagnosed with, an illness. She had an illness but got misdiagnosed with a mental health disorder and was put on psychotropic medications that made her actively suicidal. And I was working more than full time and running a nonprofit organization at the same time and trying to keep my long distance marriage, afloat. And there was one night that, my daughter and I, she wasn't able to really leave the house, or, she had such anxiety and just was overwhelmed with being around other people that the only place she would go would be in the car with me. And so we went to drive someplace to pick up food where they have those, curbside pickups. And they brought out our Italian fettuccine Alfredo that we had ordered. And she and I just kind of looked at each other, and I said, I just really want to stick my face in this pasta right now. Yeah. And she said, I do too. And it was just, I don't think it was, it wasn't the idea of sticking our open mouths in it, but it was this, hot pasta comfort type of idea. And just, we were so exhausted. We were exhausted from running and running from fear and anxiety and stress and emotion and on overload. And we were just done. So it was a very real moment.
Well, yeah, I think so many of us can identify with that feeling that, it's whether it's fettuccine Alfredo or the valley or the box of chocolate or the half gallon of ice cream or sometimes all of the above. Why do you think we get that way? And is it necessary for us to go through that so we can get to our next chapter? Do you have to go through that?
Well, I think we have to go through something. those are ways that we've learned to cope. So that's, what Brene talks about is how we have different ways of coping with our emotions and trying to avoid feeling pain. And so we'll oftentimes do things where it's either like stuffing it, she calls it chandeliering, where we stuff down pain until some random thing causes it to surface again, or bouncing, where we use anger and blame instead of actually letting ourselves feel pain. What you're talking about is numbing, and numbing can include anything like from, food to, and she'll talk about she talked about with Oprah about how you find yourself in front of the pantry, staring, looking up and down the shelves, trying to find, the highest level of carbohydrates you can find in there. But
I know that all too well, Ann.
Oh yeah, I think we all do. But you can numb with other things too, including drugs and alcohol, but things that we don't even think about, like gossip and social media and even being busy. That was another one for me. The way that I numbed was I was always busy and, working, and everything was fast-paced, and when things were very fast, and I was on top of stuff, but I wasn't having to feel, I wasn't having to experience all of what I was going through.
So, and we too many times we try not to feel. Yeah.
It's hard. It's painful to feel. Who wants to feel that stuff?
Well, it's easier for us to say to feel stress, because then there's almost like in our society now, it's almost like a badge of honor if you're like, I'm so stressed. Right. We do. That's one of the things that Brene talks about too, is that we carry our stress as a badge of honor. And but that's a problem, because that also then makes it not safe for other people to feel their feelings, and to so it's almost like we're shaming each other. And there was such an interesting experience one time where I was working at the hospital, and one of the therapists that I worked with was getting ready to leave for the evening, and she had told me that she was going to go out, and ride bikes with her husband, and she happened to go and tell the other staff on our unit good night, and she came back and she was really disheartened, and she said, I just had the strangest experience. She said, I told them that I was going biking this evening because it's a beautiful evening, and, it was like 5:30. It wasn't early. And she said the response was that a couple of other therapists said, well, we're going to be here all evening, and kind of like, how fortunate for you that you get to go and do this. We're stuck here all evening taking care of the patients, and it wasn't something that they were stuck doing, but it was their way of, using busyness, again, to avoid their own stuff, but yet putting it on someone else and making them feel badly that they were going out and doing something healthy for themselves. And we do, and it's, I think about with the younger women, it's like the working women versus the stay-at-home moms, and, we keep doing stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. It's so true. Very true.
So, Ann, listen, in your reinvention, you became a coach. What made you think about coaching?
Well, I think it was a very natural transition from being a therapist. I've always been a therapist kind of person, and coaching was a natural kind of transition, and I've always been an advocate for women and women's issues, and so the idea of connecting and supporting women around the world in order to help them be their best selves, so that, and I totally go along with the Dalai Lama's belief that women will be the ones that change the world. So I believe that, the more that we can be healthy and well and support each other, the best then we can change the world.
I believe that, and I know, and so many of my listeners know, we really have all that power inside, and then we we almost sabotage ourselves from using it.
Oh, sure.
And you know what, Ann?
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about, you and I had a conversation a couple of months ago, and I want to talk about some of that stuff that stops us from being empowered. But we need to take a break. So hang in there. Everybody hang in there, and we're going to step away for a minute, and when we come back, we'll be talking about more with Ann Hoffman-Ruffner. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Ann Hoffman-Ruffner. And Ann, we were talking before the break about, this is what I wanted you to tell the listeners. When you were in coaches training, you got in touch with some unknown feelings, dealing with shame, and it changed your life. So can you tell us what happened?
Well, it's so interesting because as a young therapist, when I started out 30 years ago, I went through my own psychotherapy. At that time, realizing that I had shame issues from my family of origin and needed to work through those, and thought I did, and had learned really great skills using cognitive behavioral therapy that was taught to me. And so it was very, very life transformative at that time. And so when Brene started doing this work, I was fascinated by it because it resonated with me. And I knew a lot of women that dealt with shame issues, from family of origin to social media to, just our culture in general. And so I knew that was something really important, and it just felt very natural to go and do Brene's certification training. And when I went there, I had a very interesting reaction, because I went in there thinking, oh, I've got this covered. I've done this, been there, done that. Yep. Yeah, and so... but some things came up during that training that I didn't understand, where, it just kind of settled in me, and they were definitely pain points, and I didn't know what they were about. And part of the process with the certification is you do your own consultation with someone, and you can choose whether or not you're going to consult about your practice issues, or you can also use personal consultation. And so I chose to do both. And I really, I'm very committed to doing my own work and really wanted to understand this. And what happened was I came to this understanding through that process that I'd had blinders on, and not only blinders, but it was almost like I'd been wearing a blindfold for probably about 15 years, because my daughter and I had a wonderful relationship when she was really little. When she went through all of these issues with the misdiagnosis, it was right around the time that she was becoming, going through that separation and individuation stage. And so it was really hard, and it was hard to understand, and I felt like I was a misunderstood mother, and I tried so hard. My intentions were really, the best intentions, and somehow our relationship was not at all like I wanted it to be. And matter of fact, it felt a lot like the relationship I'd had with my mother, which was not good, and I had not wanted to repeat that. And what I realized, or what I learned through going through this process, was that I couldn't see how I was being seen by her, and the things that I was doing. My brain was protecting me. My ego was protecting me at that time. And yet it was not helpful to the relationship. And so after working through this, it allowed me to go through the places where I felt shame. and didn't even know it, and work through those and deal with the guilt, which is different than shame, and to actually make amends with my daughter and actually begin to repair a relationship that I wasn't sure would ever get repaired.
And so I guess what I want to ask you is how common is that for us to feel that shame? But you said, it was like you had blinders on all this time. And I think a lot of times, like, something happens in our lives and then we see something differently than we had seen it for forever, maybe, or for, a period of time. We say, I wonder how long that was going on before I noticed it.
Right. Did anybody else notice this? Oh my gosh, how embarrassing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it felt. I thought about it and I thought, oh my gosh, all of these people, all of these clinicians that I was with in San Antonio at this training, you saw me walking around with these huge honking blinders on that, everybody else could see, but I couldn't see it. And it was that, wow, I've been a therapist for 30 years and I couldn't even see this in myself. And I think it's really common. And we have to be very compassionate with ourselves because this isn't easy. This stuff is really hard to dig into and face, and it's scary. When we start unearthing this stuff, it's...
Yeah, nobody wants it.
No, nobody wants to go there. But yet we also don't want to live in the pain of, not dealing with it because it's disrupted our relationships and it's not the kind of life that we really want to live. We're out of alignment with our own values and beliefs. And, what we really, so there's not that synchronicity within us. And
yeah, you know what it is, Ann? Like sometimes sometimes I think it's like we know something's missing and we can't figure out what it is.
Exactly.
And we can't put our finger on it. And
why are we doing this wrong? Why is this not working out? We're trying so hard. But it's hard to see, and sometimes it really just we need that objective, compassionate witness with us to help us on that journey.
So listen, if I have shame, my listeners don't, but if I have it and I don't know it, how do I figure it out? Like, is there a way that shame typically shows up in our behaviors?
Well, it definitely. Yeah, there are different ways and it's different for all of us. One of the things that is interesting is that shame, according to Brene, she definitely found that shame is gender specific in how it comes out. And so that's a very interesting kind of thing to explore. But when we're dealing with shame, it's just being able to talk with somebody about what, whenever we're feeling some kind of unhappiness or unrest, there are oftentimes beliefs within ourselves that are causing those feelings. And they're not necessarily beliefs that are accurate. And that's where, talking with Martha Beck, she'll talk about clean pain and dirty pain. And clean pain is when we've had something happen in our lives, like we've had an actual loss and we're grieving that loss. But dirty pain
like
is
your parents
where
pass away or you get a divorce or something like that.
Exactly. And those are real things that we go through and grieve, and it can be, loss of a job, all of those kinds of things. But sometimes when we're going through those situations in our lives, we develop beliefs, or we've had beliefs that we've acquired through our early growing up years that we've clung to, and we've never really challenged those beliefs. Mm-hmm. And they are oftentimes very limiting beliefs about ourselves and about others and about why such and such is happening to us. And, we can really be miserable with those kinds of beliefs, and oftentimes those beliefs cause a lot of shame in us. And, it has to do with comparison. We're comparing ourselves to other people. And, one of the things that Brene talked about was that through her research, even though, there is no one thing that everybody shares that, as far as shame, the number one area that is still the biggest for women is body image. And, that's something that gets carried around with our media and perpetuated, but it's everywhere. And so that's something that women deal with. But it all has to do with either not feeling good enough, or there's basically two tapes that run in our heads when we're dealing with shame. And it's either, you're not good enough, or who do you think you are?
That's the truth, Ann. I'm telling you, I remember Oprah talking about that one time on a show, and when she started to make it not just big, but really big, that she did something, and people were giving her the who do you think you are.
Right.
And I think that happens, and I think the fear of that sometimes, Ann, keeps us from being all of who we want to be.
It keeps us small. It really does. Yeah. It keeps us from, and it also keeps us from allowing ourselves to be genuine and authentic. And that's the other thing that's so fascinating to me is, I had so many friends and colleagues that would tell me that, you're one of the most authentic people I've ever met. And yet when I went through all of this, deep digging, what I realized was that there were still very big parts of myself that were not being authentic and were not in alignment with my values in relationship to certain relationships and issues.
And I think that happens way too often, and then we don't be all of who we can be.
Right. Yeah, it's scary. It's very scary to show up and be, to be real with somebody, because our social selves are used to protecting us.
And we don't want to get rejected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, tell me if you have found this to be true. I think guys, when if you say something to a guy and he doesn't, and it's not good, he comes back at you. Well, we can look at Donald Trump. He attacks back. And I think that that's true, not to that degree, but with most men, they presume that you're wrong and shouldn't have been saying that. Whereas most women presume you're right, and then we go inside and figure out, how did that happen? Do you think that's true?
Well, I think each of us responds differently. Some people are more, they take it inward and feel like they're the ones that are wrong, and then other people will, and I don't know, I haven't done the research myself to know whether it's, all women one way or another, because I have seen some women who do attack and blame more than personalize. So I'm not sure, if it's gender specific or not, but it is definitely related to our protective mechanism.
That's true. And we have to take another break, but
okay.
I know that you said that shame becomes part of our story, and you said that we are wired for stories. So when we come back, let's talk about shame and our stories and being fully empowered.
Sounds great.
So everybody hang tight, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself, and now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. energize.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm your host, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Ann Hoffman-Ruffner. And Ann, we were talking before the break about something you told me that we're wired for stories. What does that mean?
Well, you know, when something happens to us, how our brains actually try to make sense of it for us. That's their job. And so have you ever had a situation where, like, you were somewhere and you saw somebody that you knew and you waved to them and they don't wave back? They just keep walking. And, you know, the first thing, I don't know about you, maybe it's just my brain, but mine would go to,
what did I do wrong?
Oh my gosh, yeah, what did I do wrong? Did I offend them? Why are they not talking to me? What, how did I upset them? And so what happens when there's something that is going on that our brain can't fully make sense of, it fills in the blanks for us, and it creates a story. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the story is true, but that's what it tells us. And so in that case, that's where those beliefs come up, and we can get very paranoid about, oh my gosh, somebody doesn't like me anymore, I must have done something wrong. And then our behavior starts changing. We start acting differently toward that person. And then that causes a reaction in them that then we again play off of. So our brains can, while our brains are meaning to be helpful, they aren't always the most helpful. And
they're just not always accurate, huh?
Yeah, they're not always that accurate. And we have to realize that, we get to choose the endings to our stories. And the first draft that comes up may not be the best one. And Brene talks about it. She calls it an SFD. And we'll call it stupid first draft on the air, but you can imagine what the S stands for. And but it's, it's that idea that the first draft that our brain comes up with isn't necessarily the best one. And if we're feeling distressed by it, it's a good indication that we need to look at it a little bit more and decide how that's working for us.
That's interesting, Ann, because there's a technique that I use when I want to achieve something, and it has to do with repeating something 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night before you go to sleep. And it's and it goes along with using a vision board. But in the repeating of it, I never write it down. I always let it be what comes from like organically. And what I find is I do it for 10 times, and then tomorrow, then it changes a little. And then by the 10th, you're supposed to do it for 21 days. And at the end of 21 days, it has refined itself just by virtue of the fact that I've repeated it over and over and over again. My mind has that tendency to refine it for me, even though consciously I'm not doing it. Unconsciously, it refines that. It refines whatever it is so that it is exactly, like by day 10, it's probably exactly what I want it, and by day 20, it's really crystal.
Wow,
and I think that's a really interesting way of using. So I had never thought about it as using a story before, but that kind of is what it is. Yeah.
And, the reality is we think sometimes that we are not in control of what's happening in our lives, but we are in control of our stories and what we believe about ourselves. And so that is something, we don't have to feel the victim in our lives, but we can rewrite the endings of our stories and own our lives.
So Ann, I want to go back to that in a minute, but is that what you're saying right now? Is that what you mean by being fully empowered?
Yes, definitely. That's, being fully empowered means being able to make our decisions from a place of inner strength. And that way we can create better lives for ourselves and ultimately create a better world. And so it includes taking responsibility for ourselves, and that includes our stories.
So with being fully empowered being the goal, is telling stories a good way to overcome shame?
It's a part of it, yeah. It's definitely a big part of learning how to deal with the shame that we carry around and ultimately make ourselves the heroes of our own lives, or the heroines.
So when you talk, and I always say it's like being the leading lady, you know, are you the leading lady in your life, or are you the best supporting, you know,
yes.
and you know, too many of us are the best supporting actor in our own lives.
And or the victim, or the you know, the bad guy. You know, we'll make ourselves out to be one or the other, and when in reality we can be the leading lady, and it's truly up to us. Are there any typical, like you said that not good enough thing? Are there typical shame stories that keep us from being fully empowered, and how do we change that around? Like, if I want to be fully empowered, is there a way that I can change that shame story? Well, yeah, definitely. There's ways that we change that, and it goes back to really looking at those beliefs that we carry around, and it's kind of like peeling an onion, because at the core of the onion, you know, you've got all of those different layers. And so there are layers of beliefs that we carry around about the world and about ourselves and about other people. And when we identify what are painful beliefs for us, painful places in our lives, that dirty pain, then we start peeling that back to understand, where does that really start? Where did that all come from? And what is that core belief? And then really doing what's called the work in order to change the way we understand that belief, or to loosen the grip that belief has on us.
You know, I think that sometimes having been through a lot of this on my own, and to get to my own sense of empowerment, one of the things I found, and maybe this is what you see with your coaching clients, and maybe with my listeners, is that a lot of times when we were growing up and we had siblings, and they said things to us, and sometimes they said that, and kids are mean, but some of that stuff sticks, you know.
Oh, like, it does.
You know, like, and even if it wasn't true, and even if that sibling doesn't think it's true now, that somewhere in the back of your mind, it's stuck to the walls of your brain.
It is. It definitely is. And it's so interesting how, you know, many of the women that I work with, the things that they are really bothered by today, even though they're not really, it's not in their conscious awareness, are the things that were messages from when they were very young. And truly, they may have known that those weren't true at the time, but at the time they heard those, it was, you know, they didn't have a way to really evaluate it and to look at it from different perspectives and say, hey, this isn't true. And now we do have that ability to go back and turn it around and say, no, actually that's, you know, and come up with the real. It's not just positive affirmations. It's actually finding examples, real examples of how that's not true.
Oh, that's really good. Yes, it's like in my work, I call it keeping a victory journal. Yeah. So, Ann, listen, as part of your coaching services, you do retreats, and they sound really cool because you bring women to other countries for the retreat, and you just got back from France. And you're headed in the fall to Tuscany. So what's the retreat about?
Well, in the fall, in October, we're going to Tuscany, and it's going to be about, again, last year we went to Tuscany, the same place, and decided it was so phenomenal that we had to go back again this year. So we're going back to the same villa, and what we're going to be doing is allowing women to bring what it is that they're wanting, what it is that they want to change in their life or improve or create, and basically creating the next best chapter of their lives.
Very nice. And how can my listeners get in touch with you about that if they have an interest in joining you?
Well, they can go to my website.
A lot of times people, you don't know a lot of the women when the first time they come through channels like this.
Right, exactly. And it's so wonderful because that's another part of what I do is work to connect women, because I think that, we don't get connected authentically in our lives anymore. There's a lot of distant connection through Facebook, and
right.
And we don't, we need that face-to-face connection, and we really thrive on it, and the support that we can get from each other is just tremendous. And that's one of the beautiful things that happens within these retreats is the women actually get very close to one another and relate to each other so well and are so supportive of one another's journeys. And they all come with very different kinds of journeys, whether it's, last year we had women that wanted to create a new business, women that were looking at what do I do? I'm getting at the point I've been a CEO all my life and looking at, retiring soon, and I have no idea what to do, when I retire.
Yeah, and I find that with a lot of women, they're getting ready for that. Listen, Ann, we're going to need to go, but I know that you have a special free offer, and I posted it. I posted your Wayfinding Women link on
wayfindingwomen.com. Mm-hmm.
And if you go to Ann's website and register for one of her coffee chats this weekend, you'll get a complimentary 30-minute empowerment strategy session with her. So,
yes.
Ann, thanks so much for coming today. It's been fun.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. It's been delightful.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
And to all of you Victory Chicks and you guys out there, I hope you have something fun planned for this weekend, because I don't. Tomorrow I'm headed to Philly for my final Toastmaster meeting of my area director year. It's from 9 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I have to leave at 7:30, won't get home till around 4. And then on Sunday, my special event is that Joseph and I are cleaning out our basement, and if we don't, punk out the garage too. So I hope you're doing something that's more fun. Well, actually, cleaning out the basement and the garage will end up being a good thing, because it's our last big spring cleaning project, and once it's done, I'm done for the summer. Listen, my quote this week comes from, Anne was talking about she studied with Brene Brown, and so it comes from Brene, and I combined 2 meaty quotes of hers to give you something to really think about this weekend. So this is what Brene Brown said. Underneath the so-called narcissistic personality is definitely shame and the paralyzing feel of being ordinary. Shame is the most powerful master emotion. It's the fear that we're not good enough. Does that not good enough sound familiar to anybody? Listen, I wish you a shame-free weekend, one that is fully empowered and victorious. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour with me today. I hope you'll join me again next Friday at 3 o'clock right here, and I look forward to talking with you then. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.